go live, go live, go live. We're live. Yay. All right. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Divorce Successfully series with your divorce queens. I dubbed that name for us. Cherese Span and Denise Kavlaskis. And the reason for that is because both of us combined together, we are divorce queens because Cherese handles all of your financial needs and preparation and all the things financial in the divorce. And I help you with all of the emotional support, all the emotional side to the to the divorce. So welcome. And Cherese, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cherese Spand with She Wealth, which stands for Savvy, Healthy, and Empowered. And we help you navigate through life transitions financially without losing your shirt, literally.
There you go. Awesome. So Instagram is saying blah, blah, blah. Anyways, okay. Okay. So this is kind of like a part 3 of what we were talking about last week and to this week. So last week was how to successfully divorce a mama's boy. So for the women out there who are divorcing a man who has been very coddled his entire life by his parents, specifically his mom, coddled and put on a pedestal, and he can do no wrong. That's what we talked about last week. And so when you have that personality for an in-law, I know I have a story about a monster in-law, then this is for you, right? How do you handle your soon-to-be ex or your ex is your mother-in-law, your mom, his mom, your mother-in-law, when she's interfering, taking over? Even like I have a client now where the parents are intruding in the divorce and kind of trying to navigate the divorce, for their son and telling him to do this and do that, where he didn't want to do any of that. Actually, he was fine without hiring a divorce on his side. He was fine with agreeing to what his soon to be ex was putting in the divorce. But his parents got involved and it turned into like now a whole thing. She's still winning, but that's
Hashtag winning.
but so I'll share my story of a monster in law that I experienced. But Cherese, do you have any that you can think of with your clients or any experiences? I guess it would be with your clients since you said you don't have
So,
a personal one.
yeah, I can actually start from the beginning when we had the bridal store and I would see the
That's what it
dynamics,
is. Yeah.
yeah, of
The
what
bridal store
this.
show stories are
Oh
good.
my goodness. It was awful because it was either one extreme or another, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
either the mother-in-law would absolutely love the daughter, um, but when or vice versa, right? Or the on the other side, they would love the son-in-law, or the mother would the mother-in-law would love the daughter-in-law. But when I would see the dynamics between when they would both show up,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm like, this is not going to end well. This is just
Mm.
not going to end well because as parents, we do know we have a lot of more wisdom, right, than our children, right? And we do know for the most part what would be best for them. But then at some point, it becomes they are trying to live vicariously through their children, and then and or in continuation to what we were speaking about last week, the coddling and the overstimulation to the male child, now there's a new woman in his life,
Mm-hmm.
and the jealousy,
Mm-hmm.
the con- the control, like all of that stuff starts to rear its ugly head, and it makes it really unbearable for the fiance that's getting married to this gentleman, because now she's got, you're marrying the family, right? So now she's got to deal with his mom and all her issues and the things that he used to do for her, but now he has a family that he is starting, and it's going to take up some time. So it gets really interesting.
I think that's a whole like segment series right there. The bridal store stories.
Yes.
Because you seem to have a lot of stories around these dynamics, and they're super interesting and factual, right? Like nobody was on camera and scripted. It was all natural behavior that you were witnessing with these people.
Yeah, yeah, and like they had that show Bridezilla, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, there was something that's always triggering a person to act that way, right? It's not
Right.
just all of a sudden they're just kind of like, overbearing and stuff. There's always a triggers, and most
Yeah.
times it was an external force. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you were just sharing, I wrote down a couple of words because that was the experience that I had with my first mother-in-law, was the coddling of her sons and the overstimulation, the jealousy, and the control. I was 19 years old, just a baby, getting into this relationship with this family, because you're right, you do marry the family, whether you like it or not. That's true. Um,
Hmm.
so I was 19 years old, didn't know diddly squat, getting into this family dynamic, and immediately she was showing, and I didn't know any of this at the time. Like I said, I was so young. Immediately, I there was the coddling and the overstimulation and the jealousy. Right off the top, the jealousy was so prevalent, and the control. And I remember it came to a point where she was so overbearing, and he didn't even know how to handle her because he doesn't know. And like you said, he's torn between this woman that he loves, that raised him, to now his new woman that he's marrying and starting a family with. And it's like,
Right.
and then she's pulling the guilt, and she's pulling the you know the guilt trips, and you don't love me and all that crap. And on the other side, it's like, well, wait a minute, we're a family now, we're getting married, all the things. So um, what you said triggered a memory, which was, I think I shared it last week about the calendar in the room, but this one was, um, she was showing such jealousy over my then first husband. um, it was so obvious at the time that she was not having a new woman in the relationship, and that's really what it boils down to, right? Like the wife or the fiance is, it looks like an intruder into their relationship in her eyes, from her perspective, right? This is
Right.
my son, this is our relationship, we have a bond, and now you're going to try to come in and take away the time and take away his attention. And she's like, oh, which is so dysfunctional and so unhealthy and so toxic on so many levels. It's crazy to even think about now, because a mom in a healthy state of mind, it, like, hello, I have a son, he's going to be 30 this year, girl, yeah, have him. Like,
Right.
my time is up. I don't want to, I love him, he's my son, I want to spend time with him, but hey, like, good. um and even if our sons don't choose somebody that we approve of, that's not us to decide. He's got to figure it out on his own. He's got to walk that path and go through it. Now if he comes to you for advice and this and that, that's different. But as
Right.
far as the jealousy and the intrusion, and he's my son, like a territorial type of energy, you can't have him. That is so far off of the charts of healthy. It's so dysfunctional. It's crazy. So I had many occasions with my ex mother in law where she acted like that. Many, many, many. In fact, I remember the day that we got married, and because I can remember like the boop milliseconds where she was nice to me, where she was like approving of me. Because here I was, 19 years old, getting into this family, had no clue. And I just wanted them to like me, right? And this is the majority of women,
Right.
right? They just want to be accepted. They just want to be liked. Not only that, I was walking into a family who is of a different culture. They're from Cuba originally. Um, so they have like that all going on. And I'm born and raised in Miami. So diversity is like my jam. I love it. Like give me the ethnic foods, give me the ethnic backgrounds, and I embrace it. And I remember feeling very oust. Like I was an outcast. I was, first of all, I was American. I was the gringa, the gringa, and even though they were gringas too or gringos, but I wasn't Spanish, and that's what they meant. So I was very outcast. I didn't know Spanish, didn't know how to speak it, and so there was all of this like, you are not us, even though I
Right.
was getting together with him, and felt very outcasted. And then, which made me want to prove myself more, which made me
Hmm.
want to be accepted more, which is a whole thing. And so, yeah, I remember on our wedding day, she put her arms around me and she was like, "Oh, you're my daughter now." And I was like, "What?"
You accepted me?
Yeah, like I was 21 by then, still young, stupid, didn't know a thing what I was getting into. But these moms, these women are so toxic. And here's the thing that I want the audience to really hear, Cherese, is that if your soon to be husband or soon to be ex or the man in your mom, have no doubt he's got wounds. He's
Absolutely.
toxic too in some way, shape, or form, whether he's showing up to be toxic or he's just got this toxicity in him, his wounded self, and he hasn't healed it yet. He is from her. She raised him.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
I think we
It's
should interview the mother-in-laws before we get married.
it no, seriously, like when we talk about the relationships, right? And I think either our first or second live we did, we spoke about how a lot of women don't realize how much work a marriage is, and a lot of them
Mm-hmm.
want a wedding. They don't really understand, um,
Mm-hmm.
what a marriage is, and you're marrying the entire family.
Mm-hmm.
And if the mom has issues that are unresolved, if the dad has issues that are unresolved, it's going to affect your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And 8 times out of 10, or maybe I should say seven, they have issues that they haven't worked through either. So
Mm-hmm.
now you've got all this dysfunction,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have time and life happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then once time and life starts happening, people, they change and they
Yep.
react to things differently. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of everyone addressing what the root of the issue is, they want to put a band aid on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it might come in different forms of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe verbally, or maybe they drink too much, or they have some
Mm-hmm.
type of other habit that gets a little crazy or out of hand. And um, it's kind of sad because life portrays this fairy tale, which you can absolutely have if you've done the work, right?
If you've done the work, yes.
And I had this
Hmm.
conversation with my daughter the other day. She was like, "Oh, life begins at," I said, 50. I'm not there yet. I'm like 2 years away. Like by that time, you've seen a lot, you've learned a lot,
Hmm.
you've been through a lot, and it's like, okay, now I can start living because I know what's needed. In your
Hmm.
20s, you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Hmm.
You don't. We
No,
don't.
you don't know shit.
Like we're barely out of puberty and our
Yeah,
hormones are going crazy and stuff like that.
you're
So
still a baby. Yeah.
you're still a baby and you're just looking to
Hmm.
be accepted. And
Hmm.
with the in-law portion of it, if they, and also it depends on their age too, right? So if they, like we said, if they haven't done the work, and then instead of accepting this person as uh, an additional child looking for love and guidance, now they're looking at it as competition.
Hmm.
So now she's my competition,
Hmm.
and you used to do this every Friday, and now you can't because you got to go grocery shopping. Nag, 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 nag. Want, 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 want. That's what I hear people like want, 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 want. And
Hmm.
he's feeling torn because he's like, she's right, and this is my mom, but
Hmm.
this is my wife. And then if you have children, like this is my family now. I need to make sure that they're taken care of. And I still love you, mom, but you have to understand that I can't spend as much time and maybe money. Maybe he was helping out financially or what have you. And it just it makes such a huge mash. And then now everybody's clashing, right? Because they can't
Hmm.
get along. So now those Sunday dinners are not fun anymore because mom is upset that her son wasn't there on Friday to take her to do whatever like they used to.
Yep.
And now the daughter-in-law is coming over and it's her fault, but because she is not emotionally um, intelligent or have the capacity to understand, you
Yep.
could the animosity starts, and then it just builds and builds, and then you got the siblings involved. It just becomes like a complete utter mess.
Cluster. Yes.
Yes.
A whole cluster. Absolutely. Yeah. And that what you said, Cherese, is so key because I remember being in my 20s and in this toxic family and not knowing how to navigate through these, number one, the emotions that I was having, the feelings I was having, but also how to handle myself in a confident way, in a courageous way, in a calm way to express myself or my feelings or what's going on to them. I was just so like intimidated by them. I was
Right.
so underneath their, they, because those types of people are very overbearing and their energy is very controlling. And it's easy if you haven't done the work. That's the key thing. If you haven't done the work, it's easy to go, oh gosh, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to step up. Because also that's a behavior that you're used to because you come from that type of behavior from home where
Right.
you are overpowered, where somebody in the home growing up acted the same as this family you got into. And this is when the light bulb should be going off for everybody. These are the patterns
That's
that
right.
you need to recognize. Yeah. But like you said, do we know that in our 20s? I feel like some of the generation now, the 20s, are
Hmm.
realizing this.
Oh yeah, because now with like social media and all the different connections that we have, it's
Hmm.
making it it's bringing things to the surface, right?
Yes.
The light is being shined on the
Yeah.
behaviors and stuff. And I even see it in a lot of groups. They're like, oh, behavior is so toxic. I really don't want my children around that. And
Hmm.
I was actually having this conversation the other day too with my daughter. She's like, so many people are going through so much. They don't understand like what their parents, and I said, sometimes they don't even realize that they're toxic. She's like, they
Yeah.
know. I'm like, no, they don't, because they just think that it's a cultural thing or that it's the way they are, so people have to deal with it. And instead of them doing the work and getting the healing that they need, they just want to make everybody around them, they just, not that they want to, but they do make everybody around them so miserable. And they don't realize that that's what's happening,
Hmm.
that the whole family is like on eggshells and pins and needles because
Yep.
your toxicity is just overwhelming. So, absolutely.
Yep. It is. It's insane. Like if I could like go back in time and know what I know now. I
What
mean, I
would you
got
do?
two great
What would you do?
well, I was just going to say I got two great kids out of that relationship, and I got a shit ton of experience. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't been through that 22-year relationship. Like, so I don't regret it at all. I'm thankful for it. But I've come to that thankfulness. There was absolutely a time when I was like, the only thing that I got out of it was my two kids, and everything else was. But that's what the work does. That's what the healing does. It has you see things through different lenses. And that's what you were just sharing is people, they don't see themselves as being toxic because through their lenses, they're not. They see other people as showing up that way, but they don't see it within them. And for all of us, it comes to a point where things in our world have to get so bad that we're like, I got to do something to change
Mhm.
this. What is that something? And then we go on a hunt, we go on a search. We start, that was what it was for me. It started off differently than what maybe most people's I mean, everybody has their own journey, but my whole healing journey started with um I hired a business coach. I
Mhm.
thought, because and I see this in a lot of people, they're like, well, okay, I'm away from that person, I'm done with that family, I'm done with that monster-in-law. um and so I'm going to the next thing in my life. So the next thing in my life for me was I wanted to create an online business. I didn't even know what that looked like at the time. So clicking and liking and searching for an online business led me to, because like we were saying before we hit go live, right? The universe is
Right.
always listening. So the universe sent me this person who was like, oh, I can show you how to create an online business in 7 days for free, which led me to getting into a group that was to create a business, but it was around personal growth. So
Mm.
now I was in this personal growth, right? Because with business, start a business, you got to have a certain mindset. So
Right. Right.
there was the beginning of my mindset starting to shift, which then led me to, because I went to California for a couple masterminds, and um, that led me to where I remember her saying to me, my business coach saying to me, "That's great. You should get some statistics on domestic violence." And I was like, "Domestic violence? What is she talking about? I didn't say anything about domestic violence."
Yeah. Yeah.
The hair is blonde for a reason, okay? And that was like 2015. And then I sat with that. Like, why did she say domestic violence? And that just like opened up a whole can of worms for me to go down the topic of domestic violence, and how domestic violence is, yes, it is the physical violence, it is the physical part, but domestic violence is so much more than that, because what comes with the physical part of domestic violence, all the emotional stuff,
Emotional.
all
Yep.
of the mental stuff, all of the financial stuff, all of that is included. And to me, this is how I view it, not in a good way, but the cherry on top is the physical part.
Right.
It's
Right.
like it's like the icing on the cake, but underneath all that icing, you still have the same thing. So then yeah, so okay, I could go down a rabbit hole with that one.
And with the emotional part, it's really tough because a lot of people, when you say domestic violence, they automatically think a punch or a slap,
Right.
or a bruise or black eye or whatever. And if you never had any of that and you say, I'm a domestic violence thriver or survivor, they look at you
Mm-hmm.
like you're crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, well, when do you, well, this is what happened. And, you bring up either the emotional or the financial, and the financial abuse tied with the emotional abuse is awful. That's
Mm-hmm.
another topic for us to discuss. But the healing journey from the emotional part of it, especially if during the relationship you might have had many, not MANEY, MINI, breakdowns, emotional meltdowns and or nervous breakdowns within that
Mm-hmm.
time frame that were never addressed, right? So now it's come to this large event that happens. Maybe it's a blowout with the in-laws or a blowout with your spouse, or and now it's time for the divorce. And you know th- something might be said, well, my mom never liked you anyway, or something, and it's been like 20 years, and you're like, and just like that, right? That trigger just takes you way down this rabbit hole that you're stuck in, and you need help to get out of there. And when
Mm-hmm.
it's dark, um, and the people that you thought were, say, parent figures for you and this adoptive family, and they're not there anymore,
Mm-hmm.
that makes it like really, really tough, because you're like, everything that I thought my life was has been a complete lie all these years.
Yep.
So on top of everything else, the self-doubt, being able to trust yourself, being able to realize what has happened. And a lot of times you can't even get to that point yet. You just got to kind of sit where you're at and come to grips with, this is the reality. This is what's really happening. And that's a scary place to be.
Yeah. 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 One thing about the whole healing journey is I always say it's not sugar, rainbows,
Um,
and little cute trolls. And that's why a lot of people are reluctant to go down the path of healing because they know they're going to have to face their shit.
yeah,
And it's never, you know, to go and look at the traumas, to go and look at the traumatic events that you've been through, and the abuse and all the things from 0 to whatever age you are. It's not easy. It's not.
not
And
at all.
I always say that because I want people to know, like, you're so courageous and you're so brave to do this work. And that's why, because it's not easy. It is so much easier. In one perspective, it's so much easier to just ignore it and just bypass it and just go on with life. But on another perspective of that is you're still suffering. And which
Right.
one are you choosing? Which pain are you choosing? Are you choosing the pain in and day out that is not going away? In fact, it's growing. Or do you choose to face the pain, get through the pain, get over the pain so that you can not suffer anymore? Not suffer
That,
anymore.
that's how I took in a business class years ago. They used to say, either you're gonna tiptoe through the shit, excuse my language, or you're just gonna run through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you're gonna tiptoe through it, you're gonna smell it a lot longer than
Right.
if you just like put your head down
Right.
and run through it and just like kind of, you know, get it over with. But there's no way of avoiding that healing,
Yep.
especially if you have in your mind that you're going to win, right? That you're going to beat this and you're going to get to the other side. And I'm grateful that you were one of those who made it to the other side and found your calling and still growing, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful that I made it, because being in that dark space is not easy.
Horrible. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
horrible. It's torture because
Hmm.
you wake up in the morning with it. You have it, the energy of it with you. You carry it with you day in and day out. You go to sleep with it. You get into a new relationship with it. You break up with it. You get into another relationship with it. And you're like, what is going on? And I have women say to me, is it me? What? And they say to me, I feel like damaged goods. I feel like I'm broken. I'm like, no, girl. None of that is true. You're not damaged or broken. You just need to heal.
Right.
Damaged, when we look at like the word damage, that means in pieces broken. And there's nothing that I show my clients that they're putting back together. I'm just showing you how to heal what's there so that it's no longer shattered, it's no longer broken, it's healed. And just like with a physical healing on our skin, the
Right.
mastery of love, he puts in that book, he describes it so beautifully. He compares our emotional wounds, healing our emotional wounds, to a physical burn. And he says,
Oh.
what's the first thing you do when you have like a burn or a cut on your physical body? Well, the first thing you do is you're like, oh crap, ouch, that hurts, right? Okay, so then
Mm-hmm.
what do you do after that? What's the first thought? Oh, I got to clean it out. Got to clean this
Mm-hmm.
because I just like got cut on a rusty thing or whatever it is, right? So to clean out the wounds, this is what he says in the book, to clean out your emotional wounds is to come to the truth. That's the first
Right.
thing that needs to happen. You need to come to the truth. And the truth is I was in an abusive relationship. That was a hard pill for me to swallow. I
Right.
was an abused woman. I was in an abusive relationship with a man that I thought loved me. That was hard because I really did think he loved me. And when you find out, like, nope, he didn't. It was all a lie. You were there to serve him. You served a purpose for him. That's like
Whew, that's like a
punch to
hit
the
below
gut.
the
Yeah,
belt. Yes.
it is. But but when you know the truth and you can speak your truth from a place of that doesn't hurt me anymore. It did hurt me when I found out the truth. But when you can come from a place where that doesn't hurt you anymore, now you're empowered.
Right.
Now you're coming
Right.
from a completely different energy. Now you're like, oh, now I can even share this with somebody else, whether it's on stage, whether it's like what we do, and or just a conversation with somebody in Starbucks. You're coming from a place of empowerment. And at minimum, that other person that you're talking to will be like, wow, she went through a lot and she didn't even shed a tear. She's not angry. She's not crying. I want to be like that.
I want a piece of that. Like I need that.
Right. Because it's peaceful, it's calming, it's courageous, it's confidence, right? Like
Yeah.
the things that we talk about, and this is why we do it. It's not an
Hmm.
easy topic, but somebody's got to say it.
And people don't, you know, you see like a lot of ads and stuff like that, and they're not addressing, right? Like the real bits and pieces that we're going through. So with I want to back up a little bit to last week's conversation, like we were talking
Mm-hmm.
about mama's boys.
Mm-hmm.
And being a mama's boy is not a bad thing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
when it goes to the extreme, now we get the monster in law
Mm-hmm.
effect, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now we have the monster in law effect happening. You are in this relationship, and the mother is like way too demanding of maybe time,
Mm-hmm.
money, and emotional lack of emotional stability. So she may be constant calling and putting on demands, right?
Mm-hmm.
And um, no one has this conversation with us about the if you're noticing these things like before you walk down the aisle or when you're new in the relationship, this is something that you really need to pay attention to
Mm-hmm.
see if you are willing to deal with this and what is his perspective of it, because if it's not something that they're willing to work through, it's not going to get any better. And that's just the fact that
Mm-hmm.
that's just the handwriting on the wall, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how do we, I guess we do it the way we're doing it now. bring awareness and just put it out on the table, because people don't put things out on the table. I know when I was younger, it was like, oh, you don't air your dirty laundry, you don't talk about what goes on inside your home, outside of your home, which I understand. But like these facts and this information that people so readily need just to navigate in this world are super important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm posting a couple of things here that I want us to address. One is, this is what came through, the toxic relationship that you have with your mother-in-law is domestic abuse. I think maybe that's something that will be new for some people to realize. And then I just went to Google and I put in quotes from the movie, because when you just said the constant calling and texting, it instantly had me remember the movie Monster-in-Law, because that's a
Yeah.
perfect example of what a toxic mom is. And so there's one of the quotes. She said, "I cannot." It's the character Jennifer Lopez is playing, and she says, "I can't believe she compared me to Gertrude," which I don't even remember who Gertrude was, but I know for a fact that monster in-laws do give like the covert comments uh, in comparison to the new woman in his life to the ex.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like this the
Mhm.
story I was sharing last week, where I walked into the room of my in-laws at the time, and there, big and bold, was a picture of my, he wasn't my husband then, but we were engaged, and his ex-girlfriend on the wall, right where, like, you walk in and boom, there it is. Just so mean and evil. And so this is a quote that I know many of us have heard, the comparison, comparing you to
It's
the one, the girlfriend that she loved. Bullshit, she put that one through hell too.
yeah, yeah. Like, and the crazy part about it is like now in this age of kumbaya, like we love everybody, no matter what happens, I'm still always going to be there for you. Okay, I get it. But
Mm-hmm.
you also have to understand and or consider the other person's feelings. So,
Mm-hmm.
while I was married, there were a few times that one of his ex girlfriends were invited to go places because they were still friends with the
Mm-hmm.
family, and he was like, I don't want to go, because I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to subject you to that, being considerate of my feelings. But
Mm-hmm.
then I'm sitting back and I'm like, well, why would they think that that's okay?
Right.
you know
Mm-hmm.
And but we didn't have, since our parents were deceased early in our lives. I didn't have to deal with the mother-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
father-in-law type deal. And then my
Mm-hmm.
parents were gone, so it just was kind of like, but my dad, I remember he was like always leaving little notes on, like, we didn't have text messaging back then. We had cell phones, but like you weren't sending text messages the way that we do now. So he would leave
Mm-hmm.
like notes like on the phone or on the fridge, and I, and it kind of messed with my head a little bit because they weren't happy with the decision that I made, but nobody voiced that prior to me getting married. They waited until after the wedding. But I'm like, well, it's kind of late now for you guys to
Mm-hmm.
be, you know? So I never had the conversation with him about how he felt about what they were saying and or doing. It was kind of something I just like brushed off and just never really got into details about it. But it can be it can be from any family member. It doesn't even have to just be the parents. It could be a, brother or sister or
Oh
close
yeah. Mm-hmm.
cousin, that they're around all the time. Just as long as they're an in-law, then I think they qualify for this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pulling some quotes here. Can you see the comments?
I just had to share it to my, let me see, comments. To,
Okay,
oh
I'll
yeah.
read them for everybody who's listening. So I just pulled some comments. First of all, the Monster-in-Law movie that we're referring to with Jennifer Lopez and Jane Fonda, there was actually a Monster-in-Law as a TV program that first aired in 1970. So the movie was based off of that TV program. I didn't know that. Interesting. Okay. And Jane Fonda did a great job, but both Jennifer Lopez and Jane Fonda did a great job. But here's a quote that she said, Jane Fonda, who plays Viola she's the monster-in-law. I just want my son to be happy, right? They
Mm,
they they think because he's with you, he's not happy. I just want my son to be happy. Who says he's not, right? And
right.
then here's another one that she says, everybody knows that when a woman marries a man, she marries his mother too. What if I drive her crazy? Yeah.
Mm, I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So Gertrude's character, repeat the movie again that she was in.
Monster-in-Law.
Oh, so she was in Monster-in-Law. So it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
another movie. Okay, okay, okay. I did
It's
see that,
based
but I'm
off of
have
the
to watch it
TV
again.
program. There was a TV program that I just discovered called Monster-in-Law in 1970.
Oh, so this is kind of
So,
like a remake type
right, it
deal
was
of
a
it.
movie from the TV program, right? So here's the thing that's coming up. Like, look, if they made a TV program, even if it aired and ended in 1970 and they made a movie off of it, it's safe to say that there's a lot of people with this type of an issue of having a
Absolutely.
monster in law.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not something we just made up all of a sudden. It's been
Yeah.
around for a while.
Yeah. So I'm just looking up some more quotes by Jane Fonda, the character in the movie. Yeah, and I know I don't know her name, but there's this woman who she does like reels, and she has massive following. And all she is talking, she does like the whole her and her mother-in-law, but it's just her and all of the scenarios that her mother-in-law brings to the table, and it's hilarious. And I think to myself, how one of two things. First, how is her husband being if he was raised by that woman? And secondly,
Mm.
maybe it's her that is just like the mother in law. And that's why she's making fun of her. Because when two people are just alike, they don't like each other. They will
No,
go
they don't.
combative to each other because they're one and the same.
And it's funny because a Buddhist teach says that when you see someone and there's something in them that you don't like, it's the reflection of
Mm-hmm.
yourself
Mm-hmm.
that is bothering you. And some people will hear that and they'll be like, "Oh, why would you say that?" But when you really sit with it and you think about it,
Mm-hmm.
it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Whether not, maybe not the behavior, but what
Mm-hmm.
about that behavior is triggering you, right?
Exactly.
That we have to grow so that we can either rise above it or choose that we're not going to deal with it or whatever the situation is. But seeing it from their perspective, there's so many different takes on it. But like as we say in each session, the four-letter word is work. We have to do the work.
Yep.
We have to do the mental work, the emotional work, in
Mm-hmm.
order for everything else to work.
Yep. So here's a great quote that we can talk about. So the character of the monster-in-law, Jane Fonda, says, "Marriage is a sacred union which must only be entered with the utmost care." And then the character of Jennifer Lopez, who's the soon-to-be daughter-in-law, says, "Weren't you married 4 times?" And this is classic behavior, right? The
Yes.
toxic person is always the one who's giving these gems of uh, And it's like, weren't you married 4 times? What are you talking about right now? Like sacred union.
She should be an expert of how to set up the weddings and everything else as a sacred union.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm gonna
that's
have
what
to watch
these
that.
yeah, it's a great movie. It's a funny movie. And that's what these types of people, I'll just say types of people, the guilt trip, they
Mhm.
come off as like they're higher intelligent, more
Yeah.
intelligent than you are. They come from more experience than you, and they know more than you. And it's like, mm, do you? Like, really,
Hmm.
do you? Like, I just had an encounter recently with my mom, who popped into my messenger again, tried to give me the guilt trip. And I'm like, yeah, I don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
I don't feel guilty. I can still love you and honor you and respect you and
Right.
not feel guilty. No matter what you try to say to me, no matter how you're coming at me, I don't feel ashamed. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel like I need to respond. You can pull all that, cuz when you go through the healing journey, you can see the other person exactly, for not only for who they are, but where their perspective is coming from. And so
Yes.
when you know that, then you can see like that person is so emotionally wounded, and that they haven't healed. They're still they're coming at me from their traumatized version of them. And so traumatized version is going to be the shame and the guilt and the blame, and try to get you to feel a certain way because that's how they feel. And because maybe if I do this, she'll come around, and then we'll have a relationship again, and then I can start abusing her again.
Right. Right.
But when you come from the healed version of you, you go beep, bop,
Well,
boop. Nope. I
yep.
love you.
Hmm.
Not doing that again. Not.
Exactly. It's not happening.
Nope.
Step back.
Yeah.
It's like to zip yourself up, put yourself inside of this bubble,
Yeah.
and sometimes when you can feel the energy of people, right? And
Absolutely.
so I'll give them like a tidbit of like what to do. So you kind of just like take a minute, even while they're talking or you're approaching them or whatever, and you just surround yourself with this light, right? And like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
in my bubble. And you don't have to say it out loud, but you're saying it to
Right.
yourself. Just, I'm in my bubble. Nothing's going to affect me. I have light and protection around me because this might not end well if I don't do this, right?
I cover myself with the light of God. I cover
Yes,
myself with the light of God. I do that every day. I cover myself. The people think I'm
we
crazy. I don't
have
care.
to.
I don't
Listen,
care if you think I'm crazy.
we have to because there's so much happening and people are going through so much. If we're not cognizant, right? If we're not
Mm-hmm.
aware that this is what's happening, it can go from good to bad really, really quick. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to make sure that we are protecting ourselves and make sure that our mental and emotional state stays intact because like when we're digging ourselves out of that dark hole,
Mm-hmm.
any little thing can trigger you,
Yep.
and our mind is a muscle. So until we grow it back again, and then even once we grow it back, you'll feel when things are starting to be like, this is too much. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can't handle this. Like, pump the
Mm-hmm.
brakes. Let me take a step back, cleanse myself, put myself in that bubble, shine that light, let God do what He's got to do, and let's keep this thing moving because
Mm-hmm.
if not, you will allow the damage to invade your space once again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Great point. And to that, Cherese, you just came up with our next week's topic, which is, because what you're saying is so, it's so important to know. Like, so here's what I came up with: when the empath is divorcing the narcissist. Because what you're
Mm,
describing is somebody empathic, and empaths take on energies around them unless they know how to discern which energies they're allowing to come to them and not. That's why I cover myself with the light of God. And the whole bubble thing that you described is exactly what I tell my clients, right? Because all of my clients that come to me are empathic. And I say to them, you have to protect your energy. You have to protect your energy, because if you don't know how, and a lot of empaths don't know this, right? And they'll get bogged down. They call it the toxic empath. And they'll get bogged down with all the lower vibes and lower energies, because they walk out into the world and they're just like an open canvas, just like an open door. And all these energies are coming to them and they're like,
Right.
ugh. So when you know how to, one, discern which energies you want to be with you or on you and not, and have the tools to protect yourself, that I choose this and I don't choose this, and walk out through your day like that, then the bubble is perfect analogy and example to give to people, where you are in your, first of all, you're in your own world, and there
Yeah.
is absolutely, unequivocally nothing wrong with being in your own world, right?
Right.
Protecting your energy and creating this bubble around you that protects you from, I view it as like the bubble, but also the bubble is made up of I always get the Wonder Woman. Remember when she did
It's like the
the
shield.
bracelets?
It's
Yeah.
your shield. It's like, oh my
Yes.
God, like
And the
shield.
bullets would come at her and they ping right off of her, right?
Yes.
So that's the envision that I get with the bubble. Like any negative energy, low or high, that comes off of you, your bubble pings it off of your bubble. It doesn't enter your bubble, pings off of you and goes back to whoever, right? Whoever gave
Yeah.
it, whoever's trying to, like, all that. So I think that's a great topic for when the empath is divorcing the narcissist, because they don't know how to handle their energy, and so now they're walking into a divorce. Well, anyways, we'll save that for next week. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was great. That was great. Love
You
it.
know, it was so funny. The other day I was reading something and they're like, it is the person that you're divorcing a narcissist, or are they an asshole? Because there's really truly people that are just a-holes out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to the whole conversation that we were having before,
Yeah.
where when just because somebody is showing up narcissistically doesn't necessarily mean that they are an actual
Right.
or diagnosed with NPD, not
Right.
narcissistic personality disorder. Yes, correct. They could just be an asshole, and an asshole is showing up, like we were saying before, as the wounded, unhealed
Right.
self. That's the asshole, because
Mm-hmm.
the woman can show up as a bitch too, and
Yeah.
maybe she is a narcissist, maybe she isn't, I don't know. But, and again, throw the labels out the door, because who cares about the labels? All you need to know is how this person makes you feel.
Right.
All you need to know. And if this person makes you feel small, intimidating, right, like all guilt, shame, like all those things, that's what you need to pay attention to. It doesn't matter if they are or aren't bipolar, narcissistic, borderline personality. Who gives a shit? All you
Yeah.
need to know is how you feel and how you can handle how you feel. If you have to deal with this person, like maybe it's a boss or a coworker or whatever, or you're going through the divorce, that's what you need to pay attention to. But
Mm-hmm.
all of these labels are thrown at us from every which way or form, and we do it too, right, to grab their attention. But that's like the biggest thing for people to recognize, is because a lot of people get so involved in the titles. Well, I think they're a narcissist, or I think they're bipolar, or I think they're borderline disorder. And
It's like, we gotta do the work. Like, are you
at the end of the
staying? Are
day,
you
does it
going?
matter? Yeah, right, exactly. So speaking of that, we are coming to, there's a bluebird right outside my window. It's so pretty. We're coming to an end of this segment. So is there any tips that you'd like to give to somebody who's dealing with the monster-in-law? and the financial piece going through the divorce, and then your contact information that people can find you.
So just remember that there's three layers to the monster-in-law. I don't say syndrome, but component, because you've got the monster-in-law, you have the child of that person, and then you have you. So however that rolls up, male, female, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it has to start with a conversation between your spouse and or your partner and or your fiance immediately. Like, it's not
Mm-hmm.
something that you can wish or think is going to go away. And you have to also figure out if it's something that you're going to want to deal with long
Mm-hmm.
term, especially if the monster in law is stuck in their ways and doesn't think that there's anything wrong with their behaviors. So, that's my little tidbit. And again, you can reach me at www.shewealth.net. Cherese Band, telephone number area code 484-222-3050. You can catch us on Facebook, Savvy, Healthy, and Empowered Wealth, Instagram, She Wealth, and I think I mentioned them all.
Awesome. Well, if they go to your website, they can find all of your social media links there
Exactly.
too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. And yeah, so my tip would be, if you are dealing with the monster in law, it's really the tip that I always give everybody in every situation. You've got to get your triggers healed. Because if the
Mhm.
monster in law is triggering you, that is actually something beautiful for you to see within you, that you need to give love and attention to who? You.
You. Mhm.
Yeah. So that, because when you give that love and attention to you, that person will no longer trigger you. Whether it's the monster in law, the ex, the soon to be ex, the whoever, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
You are now in control of your emotions. And that is such a powerful thing to have and carry with you. And you can also get in touch with me at trueloveaftertoxiclove.com. And again, all contact information is there. It's just easy peasy lemon squeezy. Just to go to that link. My email, contact information, and my social media links are there as well. And we will be here next week, same time, same place. And that is going to be our topic: when the empath is divorcing the narcissist. And everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us. And if you have a topic that you would like Cherese or I to talk about, please message us, email us, get in touch with us, let us know, say, hey, this is what I've struggled with in the past, or I'm struggling with, and can you talk about this? And we're more than happy to. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.